All right, we are back. What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back with another one, guys. And hey, we have heard a lot from Indianapolis Colts training camp about the Colts' first two picks in the 2024 draft. And we want to ask the question today, Derek, as we are under a week from the Colts' first preseason game and we're getting ever so closer to the regular season. Looking into 2024, looking into this season, Derek, which of these rookies for the Indianapolis Colts in this draft, Latu and Adonai Mitchell, which player will have the bigger day one impact? So we're going to talk about that in today's video. But before we do that, just want to remind you guys, this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Be sure to hop over to prizepicks.com today. Use their mobile app to sign up. And when you do sign up, be sure to use the code BTJ for a $100 deposit match. All right, Derek, let's jump right into this. So obviously I already mentioned the Indianapolis Colts took two players here in the first two rounds of the draft, one on defense, one on offense, Latu at pick 15. Really, if you want to look at it like this, Derek, the number one pick on defense the Colts got, because somehow, some way, 14 offensive players got drafted before the first defensive player for the Indianapolis Colts got taken. So the Colts had their choice of any player they wanted in this draft on the defensive side of the ball. They elected to go get their guy, Latu, which they said we've seen Chris Ballard and what he said. He said, we got the best freaking pass rusher in this class. And, the Colts obviously extremely high on Latu. And, something that Derek Weed said was a big need for this team. And we really felt like the Colts needed that, even though a lot of people were saying secondary. I was always on the train. I think you were as well in some ways about you just need more from your pass rush, right? You just need more consistent pressure. You need a guy that's going to be that alpha, right? We use that term a lot. You need that guy that has that potential to be a 12 to 15 sack guy per year, like that type of player. And so the Colts went out. They got the best defensive player on their board, and they got Latu in here. And then the Colts went back in round two on the offensive side of things, which a lot of people said was their biggest need on offense, and they snagged Texas wide receiver Adonai Mitchell in round number two. A player, Derek, that a lot of people said I don't know how he's still sitting here where he was in the middle of the second round, because there were some character concerns, some questions that some teams potentially had. But from a talent standpoint, if those weren't a thing, I do think A.D. Mitchell had the talent of a first-round pick, and not just me. A lot of people said that. A lot of people were shocked that he was there. So both these guys definitely have had an opportunity, Derek, and were projected by a lot of people to have guys that could be plug-and-play type of players, right? Guys that you can plug in to your scheme, to your system, and they can play from day one and have an impact on this offense. And I do think, Derek, when you look at both of these players, they're both going to have an opportunity right away to really contribute to this team in 2024. But the question remains, Derek, who has the bigger impact from day number one? And I can honestly, before we kind of talk about each player, I'll just say this. I could see either of these guys having extraordinarily great rookie seasons. Like, I really, really could. I think they're both going to have pretty big impacts in their own right. But we got to talk about it because it's a question that I posed on X the other day, and you're like, hey, I like that topic. Let's talk about it. And I figured with the first preseason game coming up where we're going to see both these players in action, we got to talk about it. So, Derek, talk to me about these two players, some of the reasoning for one player versus the other, Mitchell versus Latu, and kind of the conclusion that you've come to as you've kind of processed this and thought about this question that we're going to raise today.
Yeah, I will start by saying I agree with you completely that it's not as far-fetched as some might think it is in regards to who actually is a bigger impact from day one. I know that from one position standards, clearly one guy is a little further down on the depth chart than the others, but I mean, who knows? I mean, because both of these guys are performing insanely well in training camp so far. And honestly, Cody, I think actually even better than what you and I both actually thought they would. So, yeah, I mean, let's break it down here. I mean, first pick of the draft this last year for the Colts, their first actual pick at 15 overall, first defensive player taken, Latu. And, he has just been everything you wanted. The sound bites have all been great. Teammates rave about his work ethic and his motor. Even at practice today, when this video was recorded, DeForest Buckner and them were pulled off to the side to do a quick little media session. And they were asked about Latu, and he's saying, like, oh, I mean, Latu's getting a sack or two a day out here. And I mean, that's showing, and it's not even just against backups. I mean, we've seen him do that against Bernard Ryman, who, of all people, we keep talking about is a rising, not necessarily a star, but a rising level left tackle right now. And he that is certainly not an easy task, especially for someone as a rookie. And of course, we have seen highlight after highlight after highlight of Adonai Mitchell. I mean, the guy in a one-on-one matchup, I don't think there's a corner on this team that can cover him, Cody. I don't think Kenny can do it. I don't think that Juju can do it. I don't think any of them can. I mean, and that's impressive as well, given the circumstance that, again, this was a guy that was a rookie. We were told had character issues and maybe didn't really care as much about the game as some people thought, and fell all the way to us at 52 when we traded back still to get him. I mean, I will say this, Cody. I really am surprised that this guy made it out of the first round. I mean, honestly, this guy's making play after play. He looks like the perfect prospect that you wanted when you drafted him. So, I mean, going into this conversation, and we'll start with the first point on who would have the bigger impact. For my argument on Latu, and it's very much apparent now because everyone knows it, is that Ebukam is now officially done for the season. Because with Ebukam being in there, Latu was having to fight for first team reps. He wasn't going to just be given the spot. I mean, he had to earn it against Ebukam and against Kwity Paye. Well, now you have lost your most consistent edge rusher for the season. And, in a weird way, I mean, it's just Latu, now you are it. Like, this is, you're now being thrown into the fire. And thankfully, Latu has answered the call and has done a lot of great things to impress his teammates. So not only has he answered the call, but he's delivered beyond what some of them were probably thinking this guy would do. And I think just from a standpoint of knowing what you lost with Ebukam, the bigger day one impact for the most part has to be Latu, because whether it's a good impact or a bad impact, Cody, because remember, bigger impact does not always mean good. It could also mean a bad thing for the Indianapolis Colts. If Latu goes out there and doesn't perform at the level to which we're seeing in camp right now, and what we talked about when he was at UCLA, if he goes out there and just keeps having the same results that like Kwity Paye had last year, where like, you're not consistently getting near the quarterback, you're getting a sack every other game. Like, if we're seeing that, then that does negatively impact the defense in a big way, because we're looking to take that jump with you. Obviously, he's a rookie. It's a lot of pressure to put on a 23-year-old, but that's the expectation that you had coming in here. And if you don't deliver, then you're going to get looked at in a worse way than Adonai Mitchell, who was, by all accounts, everyone says he should have been a first-round pick, but he was drafted in the second round. He's in a wide receiver unit that has Michael Pittman, has Josh Downs. They have some good wide receivers already in that bunch. And now you're an additional piece into the mix. So, I mean, there's less room for error with Latu. And there's just a lot more room for forgiveness with Adonai Mitchell to figure it out. because there's just a lot more really great players for Indianapolis in his position group than what you have with Latu right now.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like pre-Ebukam injury, I think this is a whole different conversation. But you're right. I mean, Latu's going to get a lot of snaps. Like he's going to see the field. I think, and I think you would probably agree with this. He's going to see the field more than Adonai Mitchell right away. I think there's no question in our mind. You need to mention Alec Pierce as well, who right now has that position. He's the leader. He's the leading guy right now at that wide receiver 2 position. So, the amount of depth, and also like you mentioned, like the depth chart right now, where Adonai Mitchell, I mean, if you throw Josh Downs, as that number 2 and Alec Pierce right now is a number 3, he's a number 4 option at the wide receiver position. And I think he's going to be more like package, specific type of guy, right? Where he's not going to have to go out there and, be a guy immediately, have that immediate impact. I think he will have an impact, no doubt. I think there's going to be situations, but it's going to be that situational more with Adonai Mitchell right away. And obviously, if he continues to develop, maybe he'll take more of that number 2 role as the season progresses on. But I really do think, Derek, even though you still have Tyquan Lewis, I mean, the loss of Ebukam, I mean, it's going to give those guys like Latu a lot more opportunities. And he's been lighting it up, like you said, like from basically day one of full pads, Latu has been that type of prospect. And I mean, I think if you're honestly looking at the two, even though both players have a lot of talent and you're excited for them, I mean, I think you're saying Latu right now is more polished at his craft than Adonai Mitchell is. I mean, I think we can say that. Yeah, Adonai Mitchell has that wow factor with the touchdowns every, 5 catches. He had a touchdown last year. But, I mean, Latu has had 2 exceptional seasons, like historical type of seasons in college football, right, in the last couple of years at UCLA. So, I mean, I think those sorts of things, the depth charting, kind of where each player is on the depth chart, I think definitely factor into Latu's favor. And like you said it already, but like this dude's only a rookie, and he's out there beating a guy who was, I would say, borderline top 10 left tackle last year in Ryman. He's not just doing it against the scrubs, against the backups. Like he's doing it against the starting offense, right? Which I think is definitely incredible to see. And you're excited to see what he does in year 1. But I mean, both guys are going to have an impact, but I think for those specific reasons, for, the ways the Colts are going to use probably Mitchell early versus Latu, I mean, you're right. I think there's no doubt that Latu has the edge there on the day 1 impact. Now, again, if Adonai Mitchell, if this was a situation where the Colts did say they didn't have a player like Alec Pierce waiting right there who is going to compete, it might be another conversation too. But the fact is they do. And like it or not, Derek, Alec Pierce had the most snaps, one of, if not, I think he had more snaps than Pittman because, Pittman missed that game with the concussion. So Alec Pierce had the most snaps of any of the Colts wide receivers last year. So, well, I don't think that's going to be a thing necessarily this year. He's going to get a lot of snaps. He's going to be involved in this offense. Like he's not just going to get phased out, right? So I think we got to definitely factor that in. No question about that. So it's going to be interesting, Derek, to see kind of how it looks here, day 1 impact for both these players. But I think if we have to give a player the edge right now, I think we're going to say Latu probably gets that from the injury to Ebukam, and also just the fact that he's just a more polished player at this point in his career going into his rookie season. So,
I will give this.
Any other thoughts?
I will give this though. For Adonai Mitchell, I there was a lot more question marks about Adonai Mitchell, and from that perspective, I think what has been the better story has been Adonai Mitchell because of how he's looked, which gives this a little bit of a actual conversation, because I did wonder because with the character stuff that they said that happened, there was always a thought in the back of your mind. You're kind of like, what if they were actually true? We won't know yet until we actually see him go out on the field and do some stuff. And I mean, we heard Ballard and his presser after the draft, after day 2, and he talked about, how these reports come out and he's said his BS and, is all this other stuff that we won't repeat on here for family related content. But, that was good for that mentality of it, because we were hearing all these reports and then we're wondering, why did this guy who for 3 months prior to that, everyone kept saying is for sure a late first or early second round pick end up falling to the back half of the second round all the way to us for some reason. And so, to see him now come out here, defy what everyone was saying about him, to now just being the talk of the outside of Anthony Richardson, Cody, I don't think that there is anyone that is being talked about more and their impact of what they've looked like in training camp so far than Adonai Mitchell, which is a tremendous thing for Mitchell to be a part of. And if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's only going to increase his usage in this offense. And the more he increases the usage in this offense, the more of a day one impact he's going to have. And it could actually be something that rivals Latu, especially if, knock on wood, there's an injury that happens at some point to this wide receiver group at some point. And if Adonai Mitchell has to step up and be that guy, you're gonna have a Latu situation just on the offensive side.
Yeah, no doubt. So, guys, let us know your thoughts here on these two players, Latu, and Adonai Mitchell. Who do you feel like is going to have the bigger day one impact for the Indianapolis Colts? Do you agree with us when we said Latu, or do you think AD Mitchell maybe has more of a day one impact than we're giving him credit for? So let us know all those things in the comments down below. But be sure to smash that like button, guys. Hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, all that good stuff. We are on the push to 19,000 subscribers, and our goal this season is to hit over 20K at some point in the 2024 regular season. So if you haven't already, we would love if you guys would help us out in that department. But other than that, guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. And as always, go Colts.